is Centerpoint M45. Thanks for staying with us on the program. On this session, we'll be talking about one of the rights that we all have to exercise. As a human being, as a Nigeria, we all have the rights, the responsibility to vote, to bring in, to decide who we want to lead us. And to do that, we need to go through a process. We have to get registered, get the cards, so we can exercise our franchise whenever it's time for us to do so. Now, joining me this morning to talk about the need to strengthen continuous voter registration in Akwa Ibom State, we have the Resident Electoral Commissioner, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Mr. Obo Effanga. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone.
All right. Now, before we delve into our conversation, let's quickly take this message from INEC, and we'll be back.
Electoral Commission will resume the recently suspended nationwide continuous voter registration exercise to register eligible citizens who have never registered before or turned 18 after the last registration exercise. From Monday, 5th of January 2026, intending registrants can visit the INEC voter registration portal on www.cvr.inecnigeria.org to pre-register online, book an appointment, and complete the process by walking into any INEC office nearest to them to capture their fingerprints and photographs. Please be informed that all those who pre-registered online during the first phase of the CVR can still complete their registration during the second phase. INEC state and local government area offices nationwide will also be open for persons who wish to register physically. Previously registered voters who wish to transfer their registration, apply for replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, or correct their personal information in the register of voters can do so within this period. This message is brought to you by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, making your vote count, consolidating our democracy.
Make your vote count. To do that, you need to do the needful, which is why we have the Resident Electoral Commissioner, INEC, here with us this morning, and he's still here. Okay, you've met him already. Once again, sir, it's good to have you on the program.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay. Now, at the moment, currently here in Akwa Ibom State, what is going on, in terms of the voter registration, the continuous voter registration? What's going on at the moment?
Okay, thank you. The continuous voter registration is going on right now in Akwa Ibom and in all the states in Nigeria. The second phase of the registration started on the 5th of January, and it will continue until sometime in April. Now, if you recall, we started the first phase last year in August, and it ran from August until December 10th, and we are now in the second phase of the registration. So members of the public have been coming up, turning up at our registration centers to get registered, those who hadn't registered before. There are also people who had registered, they want to make changes to their information. Maybe they want to transfer from one location to another, or there were mistakes in their information they want to correct. There are also people who lost their cards and they want new cards produced for them, even though they still want to vote in the same place where they are registered to vote. Okay. So a lot of things are happening in relation to the continuous voter registration. Okay.
Now, I understand you have 31 offices here in Akwa Ibom State.
Yes.
Are those 31 offices, are they always open? What time to what time do you?
So there are actually 32 offices.
32
in Akwa Ibom State.
Okay.
There is one, the state office, where I sit, and in each of the 31 local government areas of Akwa Ibom State, there's an INEC office there, where there is an electoral officer and a few of the staff who work there in that local government area. They are all open. They are all registration centers as far as the continuous voter registration is concerned. So people can go to any of the registration centers nearest to them and be attended to. From next week, we will be going closer to the people. We'll be going to the what we call registration areas, what people commonly call the wards.
Okay.
will be going there. So there's a schedule for each local government area which we are making public for people to know that in this local government area, for instance, these are the places we will be for this week. So what we're doing is, for each local government area, there are 2 IVETs, that's the INEC voter enrollment device.
Okay.
So for each week, they will be in 2 different locations in that local government, 2 different wards, and we'll publicize that for people to know. For instance, Monday to Friday, for instance, of next week, in a particular local government area, you will see them in this ward location, and you will see them in this ward location. You can go there. It's closer to you to get registered.
Okay.
Because for some people, going to the local government office of INEC was considered a distance for them, so we are now going closer to the people.
Okay. Okay, and then when you get there, apart from will it just be registration of new voters, or you'll be doing everything that you do in your offices?
Yeah, we'll be doing everything that we do in the offices.
Independent National Electoral Commission will resume the recently suspended nationwide.
Only a Nigerian is qualified to register as a voter in Nigeria, and only a Nigerian who is up to 18 years of age at the time he or she comes to register, that is qualified to register. Okay. But if the person had previously registered, he doesn't need to register again. When I say previously registered, anybody who had registered to vote in the election of 2011,
okay,
2015, 2019, 2023, they don't need to register again. They are already in our voters register.
Okay.
So it's people who never registered before now and who are up to the age. We know that between 2023 and now, there are a lot of people who have turned 18 during this period and they need to register. We are targeting those kind of people. And for others who for some reason couldn't register before now, but they're qualified to register, they can also come. Now for those, like I said, those who are already registered, if they want to change their polling unit, okay, they can come. We will attend to them. If there is any problem with their registration, maybe there was a misspelling of their names, or they've actually changed their names, especially for married women who want to answer their new names. If they've changed their names, they can come. We'll make those changes for them. And for people who also maybe they lost their cards, or their cards are defaced and they want a replacement, they can come to us. Just that for all these other aspects, apart from fresh registrants, they can actually access that service online. Okay. If they have access to the internet, they can do that without coming to us physically. But if anybody has a problem, just come to the registration center and you'll be attended to. Okay.
Now, how much should people pay to get corrections done?
Nobody pays anything.
Even in all the offices, online?
All our services are free.
Okay.
If anybody makes a demand of anything from the registrants, they should let us know.
Okay.
We don't pay for, we don't charge money for any of our services. So if you lost your card and come, we'll produce a new card for you. If you keep losing it and keep coming, we will produce. We won't ask you that we've produced 3 times for you before now and you should start paying. No, we don't do that. We don't think that people will just throw their cards away. If people have lost their cards, it means they really need it again. That's why they're asking us to reproduce for them.
Okay. Okay. Another quick question. Can your system easily detect people that have already registered, but they may come in and say, no, I have not registered before?
Yes, that okay. we can do that. Previously, that wasn't the case. If you recall, there are some people who will tell you that prior to the 2023 general election, they came and registered, and then INEC did not give them their cards. Some of those people, what happened was that they had registered before that time.
Okay.
Maybe any time from 2011.
Okay.
And they misplaced their cards, lost it, or they changed from where they were living and maybe changed their names, or the information they gave previously was not genuine. But the important thing is that their facials and their fingerprints was captured by us previously.
Okay.
And they came later wanting to get a new registration. Some of them deliberately thought they could register more than once, and so they came and registered. Although at that time, after registration, before we produce the cards, we'll run what we call ABIS, Automated Bimodal Identification System Screening, which means that we'll check your information, your biometrics and your facials with what we have in the system. If it matches with anyone anywhere in the country that we already have, we know that this person is previously registered, and so we'll cancel the new one. So a few persons in ahead of 2023, when they now came to collect their cards, they were told there was no card for them because that attempted registration was nullified. But all they said was, we registered, and they did not give us their cards. What we've done this time is that at the point of registration, we can actually know whether you are previously registered. So there are a few cases. Only yesterday, we had a few of those cases. In Oron, for instance, there was a gentleman who went there. They asked him if he had registered before. He said he had not registered, but we suspected he had been registered because, given his age, that he ought to have registered. He said he had never registered, so we gave him the benefit of the doubt. He filled all the documents, the documentation, and then when we now captured his fingerprints and his facials, we now saw that the gentleman had registered in January 2011 in Lagos, and they showed him that you could see his picture. And so what we had to do for him was, since he now wants to vote here, we now did a transfer for him. But actually what he did was a criminal activity. It's an offense, which is punishable. Somebody asked yesterday when I mentioned that somewhere and said, why didn't you just hand him over to the police? But we are not so much interested in that. It could have been ignorance. He could claim he had forgotten or something. Importantly, how many people will we have space for in the detention centers to keep for this kind of infractions? But importantly, we caution people when they come to register to be sure they've not registered before. But if they try to, we'll find out at that point. Even if we don't, we'll still do the back end screening and find out. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why we have you here, so you can enlighten people, because some people might think, oh, it's quite long, I don't think they have my data anymore, I don't want to go to the stress of them looking for my data. But it's good for you, it's good having you tell us that everything is in your database, and people can just do the needful, reprint and all of that. Just that, like in the case of that gentleman, he had wasted everybody's time. Because if he had just told us up front, this is what it is, we would have picked that and just have transferred him. But he passed through all the process of going. Others were also waiting to be registered, and then it's okay. All right. Now, talk to us about your observations so far with regards people's response to the call by INEC here in Akwa Ibom State. Well, so in the first phase that was from August to December last year, we had new registration in Akwa Ibom. We had more than 70,000 new registrations in Akwa Ibom. Prior to that, the voters register for Akwa Ibom shows that we have 2.3 million registered voters in Akwa Ibom. So for that period of the first phase, we had more than 70,000 new registrants that would be added by the time we do the screening. Then when we started again in January, we are getting more people. What I would also observe, which is clear every day, because every day we post the figures of whom we have registered, I follow that. Local government by local government, male and female. What is clear is that more women are registering than men. In all the local government areas every day. The cumulative figures for Akwa Ibom State, there's no day that we have more men registered than women. Every day is more women. Wow. Perhaps we should attribute that to, we see lots of sensitization. For instance, yesterday Akwa Ibom State government started sensitization for for the women. Sensitization to, I think they began in Abak and Ikwaripene.
Okay, that was on Monday, not yesterday. To sensitize. Perhaps you think the men should equally.
Well, we can't tell. It may also mean that there are more women who are qualified to register than men.
Okay. And
it could also be that maybe more women didn't have the opportunity of coming to register before now. It could also mean, I mean, this is something I would want journalists to investigate, to find out, researchers. It could also mean that maybe we also know that some of the people who come to register is not only because they want to vote, they want to have a means of identification. And the permanent voters card is one of the major means of identification that is generally accepted across the country. And it could mean that this is the cheapest, if I may use that word, or the easiest for people to acquire, for people who are not in formalized employment, that they may have an identification card in their offices, or the other forms of identification that are as highly rated as the permanent voters card, a driver's license. It could mean that not many women would access that, and the other one is international passport. So this is, like I say, the cheapest form of identification that people can get, apart from the fact that it is also useful for election.
Okay. Now, I remember in 2023, before the elections, when we did our media reports, we noticed there were unclaimed, voter cards.
Yes.
Are they still piled up like we used to see?
Well, we still have a handful of those. But what we also need to realize is that some of those cards may belong to people who have since transferred from those locations. So those cards come from as far back as for the 2011 general election. So those people who registered to vote in the 2011 general election, remember when the registration was done, they were given what was called temporary voters card. It was afterwards that they now changed those for permanent voters cards. There may be some people who voted with the temporary card then. By the time they moved to the permanent voters cards, they may have moved from that location to somewhere else, have transferred, received their permanent cards in the new place. So this other one that is there is of no use to them. It's also possible that some of those people are dead. So some of the registered voters that you'll have the cards, some of them may be dead. It's also possible, because back then, before we reach this level of technological development that we are using, it's also possible that back then many people did multiple registration. So some of those cards may actually belong to such persons, or maybe some people were able to manipulate the system such that they registered people that didn't exist, or mass number of people, hoping that they can use it for election. But because we now use the beavers to accredit people, there is no way you can be accredited to vote if you're not the owner of the identity. So if you're not carrying your own card, it's useless for you. So some of those cards may never be picked up eventually, because these persons are no longer exist.
All right, like your message clearly stated, the jingle we had to play, and then you also stated 18 years. Now, how, you also said it's so easy to register for the voter card, unlike, other registration where they ask you for some certificates. Do you do that in INEC to know who is actually 18?
Okay, so you should be at least 18 the day you come to register.
Okay.
When people come to register, we would assume, if they tell us what their age is, their date of birth is, and it means they are up to 18, we will register them. But if the registration officer has reason to believe that this person is lying, if the registration officer is not convinced that this person is a Nigerian and is up to 18, the registration officer can ask the person to show proof. So whatever you will have to show, to produce, to show that you are a Nigerian and that you are up to 18, you will need to convince the registration officer before you're registered.
Okay. All right. We will take another break here, bring back that message, and then we will continue our conversation with the resident electoral commissioner. Do stay.
The Independent National Electoral Commission will resume the recently suspended nationwide continuous voter registration exercise to register eligible citizens who have never registered before or turned 18 after the last registration exercise. From Monday, 5th of January 2026, intending registrants can visit the INEC voter registration portal on www.cvr.inecnigeria.org to pre-register online, book an appointment, and complete the process by walking into any INEC office nearest to them to capture their fingerprints and photographs. Please be informed that all those who pre-registered online during the first phase of the CVR can still complete their registration during the second phase. INEC state and local government area offices nationwide will also be open for persons who wish to register physically. Previously registered voters who wish to transfer their registration, apply for replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, or correct their personal information in the register of voters can do so within this period. This message is brought to you by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, making your vote count, consolidating our democracy.
Alright, thanks for staying with us. Okay, we still have the resident electoral commissioner, INEC, Mr. Obo Effanga, with us, talking about strengthening continuous voter registration in Akwa Ibom State. Now, one issue you raise is, in this age, the use of technology. We expect to see lots of that. How prepared is INEC for all of this? The beavers, the IREV, how prepared, as the momentum intensifies as we gear towards the 2027 elections?
Okay, I've just mentioned here that even at the point of registration, we are able to identify people who are attempting to do multiple registration. That's technology. Before now, it was such that we may not know at that point until we go back and review. But this time, we can actually identify you at the point of registration that you're already in the system. So that's an improvement to technology. Then for the other processes, I've talked about the effectiveness of BVAS, the bimodal voter accreditation system device, in accrediting voters. Before now, when we're using when we're using the smart card reader,
okay,
all you needed was bring a permanent voter's card. It's put in the smart card reader and it reads it to be an authentic card, and then you're asked to put your finger for it to read. Sometimes it may not read very well and we may override it and say, okay, well, you go ahead and vote, and then the voting figures are now announced after them. But with the beavers, it's such that not only would you not be accredited if you're not the owner of that identity, but for those accredited, the beavers keeps a record. So at the end of it, if the beaver says in this polling unit 43 persons were accredited, we don't expect the votes to be more than 43. If there are more than 43, it means there was an error and the votes for that polling unit would be cancelled. So the likelihood of padding votes where none existed is not there with this. And also, these results, when the results for the polling unit is entered in the result sheets, copies of that are given to the agents of the parties and the security agencies, and we use the beavers to take a photo of that result, and that is that picture that is uploaded to the IREV, so people can see it to confirm that the result that was gathered in that polling unit was uploaded, and that is what is taken to collation. And at each of these stages, the agents of the political parties are there and they see what is happening. So if the figures coming from the polling units in that ward do not align with what the party agents themselves had got from the agents from the polling units, they can also raise issues about that. So there are a lot of checks and balances in the process.
Okay. Now, over the years, some Nigerians will keep telling you they are skeptical about the electoral process. They are skeptical about results. What reassurances can you give to such Nigerians, and based on what?
Okay, so what I'll tell people is that if they recall before now, what is now usually referred to as vote buying wasn't an issue. because then the politicians did not really need the votes to get the victory. It was just to write results, so to speak. Whether, even if it was only 20 persons that turned up to vote in a polling unit, they could declare more results based on the number of registered voters. It was that bad.
Was that usually the case?
It was that bad in this country. I mean, we must face facts.
Okay.
We have followed election long enough in this country to know that used to happen, but that can't happen now. The votes are counting, and that is why politicians sadly have resorted to vote buying, because they know that vote counts and they want the vote to come in to the advantage by any way, and that is why they now approach the voters to pay them to vote for them.
Okay.
That's one way of knowing that these votes count. And like I've also mentioned, the processes, the checks and balances in the process, that even if there is an error or deliberate mismanagement of the counting or the result, it can be traced and it can be challenged.
All right. We are gearing into, we are quite accelerating. The momentum is high as we approach the 2027 general elections. I know for now we do not have candidates, but we have the political parties. What's the expectation of INEC from them with regards, first of all, the voter registration?
Well, we expect the political parties to be more involved in the voter education, because they are the primary beneficiaries of the electoral process. When people register and people vote, they are voting for political parties. So they are the primary beneficiaries. They should be involved in mobilizing people to participate in the continuous voter registration. But like you're saying, we are going towards the election next year. We also expect political parties, and when we say political parties, we are talking about members of the political party,
okay,
to play by the books.
Okay.
They should conduct themselves in a responsible manner based on what the Constitution says, the law says, the electoral guidelines say, and even the Constitution and provisions guidelines of their own political parties. One of the things we see is that there is, to use the Nigerian expression, too much anyhowness by the politicians and the political parties, that they don't even follow their processes. And a lot of times you find a lot of the system is heated up by intra-party politicking, and sometimes it even results to violence, because people try to manipulate, and manipulate the process of the political parties. People, if the political parties, if the politicians follow the rules and do the right thing, we won't have the problem. And so when they also cannot even conduct what we call internal democracy, it could also affect the general election itself, and their attitude towards election. Okay.
Now, what contingent plans does INEC have for, for failure of, for instance, the technology devices that will be used when the time is nigh?
That for every technological process there is also a manual process. Okay. The truth of it is that our election is still manual. What do I mean? You have to come physically. You will be given a ballot paper. You will manually indicate your choice on the ballot paper, and you will drop it in a ballot box. We will manually bring out the votes, sort them out, and count them. We will manually record the votes in the result sheet and give copies to the political parties. We now use the beavers to take a snapshot of that and then upload it to the system. So we need to understand this. So at any of those stages, if technology fails, there's always the manual information about it. Okay. So if the technology that fails is in the accreditation, like the beavers, it rarely happens, but if it happens, we have backup beavers where a new one would be configured, another one would be configured for that polling unit so that they can go ahead with the accreditation and voting.
Okay.
And where that does not happen, where that there's a failure there, then there is room to now have that election the next day in that polling unit, for instance.
Okay. And then this other question, I know we will ask it again when the time is, when it's close to the elections, but let me start now to ask, what is INEC doing concerning criminal acts like vote buying, impersonification? What are you putting in place to tackle all of this?
We have the process for ensuring that what is important is that anybody who comes to vote is given unfettered opportunity to vote. You cannot challenge anybody's choice.
Okay.
Whatever is the reason for the person voting for one party or another, it is a person's choice. Nobody can challenge that, right? Now, the issue of how people vote is now an issue of morality, is an issue that concerns us as a nation. So we can talk to people that, please, when you come to vote, think of the future, the implication of how you vote, the implication of that on the system, on the society, on the state, local government, if it's a local government election, for instance, or the nation at large, and then vote based on your mind. Okay? But then somebody can decide that my reason for voting for these candidates or this party instead of this is for many reasons. Some people vote on the basis of where the person comes from. That's their choice. Some people vote on the basis of religion. That's their choice. Some people vote because these persons are friends with them, or give them, support them, or has promised to support them, or may even support them just on the day of the election. Now, what we are interested in is that if the election is conducted in such a way that those attempts at winning voters does not affect the election. So if you're talking about vote buying is a national malay. It's something everybody has to talk about, and it's something we also need to hold the political parties, to account for, not to do that. It also involves the law enforcement agents. Now let us assume that on an election day you see people selling votes or buying votes, because now we've reached a stage where even the voters want their votes to be bought. So now you have an agreement between the buyer and the seller. They have so many ways of conducting that without you seeing what has happened. The important thing for us is that somebody comes to vote, is given a ballot, and the person votes. We can improve on the process of voting such that others don't know how somebody has voted. That we keep working on. Okay. Now, if we actually notice these people trading at the polling units there, all we can do is to draw the attention of the law enforcement agencies too. Okay. You don't expect the precise at the polling units. At a typical polling unit, there are only 4 direct personnel of INEC, ad hoc staff, usually the presiding officer and 3 assistant presiding officers who are involved with the election. You will not expect them to leave what they are doing to run after people who are sharing votes, sharing money for votes. That's the responsibility of the law enforcement to do that. And even in doing that, they will also have to be responsible that they are careful that that does not lead to a disruption of the entire voting in that polling unit. So there are lots of things about this. You have no way of knowing the value of a person's vote, whether it was influenced by money or it was influenced by some other sentiments. The important thing is that the person has voted one way or another, and the vote has to be counted based on that. Okay.
Another issue that we usually have, another challenge we usually is that of ballot, or what do they term it? Snatching ballot boxes.
Yeah.
How are you addressing that?
Well, you'll know that isn't so much a regular occurrence now.
Okay.
And it's also still because of the technology that we are deploying. Before now, you had instances of ballot snatching and ballot stuffing. You can't do that again now, because the Beavers has already shown how many people were accredited in that polling unit. So you can't have more votes than that. And we also have security agents at the polling unit these days, more than we used to have before. And so the incidents of ballot snatching, it's so far-fetched. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's too rudimentary a process of cheating in the election now.
Even though we have still at least a year before the elections, I had to ask that for the sake of people who are still skeptical about our electoral system, people who still think their vote will not count. So
this is what I like to tell people. The election is a national project. It doesn't belong to INEC alone. The success of the election or the failure of the election cannot be linked to only INEC. It is about us as a people. What's our attitude to that which is public? What is our attitude to the things that concerns everyone? So if on election day every other person is doing things to hinder the free conduct of the election, it will be difficult for INEC alone to be the only one trying to do the right thing. What's the attitude of the average voter who comes to the polling unit? Are they ready to conduct themselves orderly so that they can easily vote and the votes are counted? The people that disrupt the election are from the community. Usually they are from the community. They are community members. They are politicians that the community members know. And these are the same people that we celebrate, even when we know they conducted themselves irresponsibly during the electoral process. So it is for us as a country, it's a national thing. So everybody has a role to play. The media also has a role to play. The civil society groups have roles to play, religious groups, traditional institutions. That's why we engage all of these persons when we are planning for the election. Yes.
Your level of partnership with all, the sectors you've just mentioned.
We partner with all these people. That's why we are here in the station, in your studio, talking about this. And we also have engagements with these other agencies, groups at different times where we talk about this. Before we started the continuous voter registration, we had series of engagements with them. We even had training sessions for representatives of political parties, representatives of religious institutions, where we showed them how they can do the some of the things with the continuous voter registration without even coming to our office. There are things they can do with the online. We showed them. We had activities with them related to that. We expected they were able to also go to the communities and help people with this.
In all of these, what challenge does INEC have?
Well, there are many. We've talked about some of them in the course of this. At the moment, the continuous voter registration is actually going on smoothly, I must say. But like I said, I've mentioned instances. So a lot of times when I go to the registration centers, I interact with the potential registrants, and the question I always ask, all of you what do you want to do? Most of them say they want to register. And you'll see grown-up people who they've experienced many election cycles as 18-year-olds and above. And I said, oh, you mean you've not registered before? They will just say no, they've never registered. You keep prodding and prodding and prodding, and then at some point, by the time you tell them that, look, if you try to register now, it will be cancelled. You would have wasted your time. And then somebody now says, okay, the other time you registered is long ago. He believes that one no longer exists. I say, how long ago? And many of them will say they can't even remember. So I'll start asking them, okay, was it when President Goodluck was elected? Or sometimes they will say, here in Akwa Ibom, they'll say something like, oh, that was when Akwa Ibom was elected governor. So I'll use that to gauge, okay, it was this year, you are still on the voters register. If you don't have your card again, this is what you need to do. We'll do a transfer for you or update or whatever, but please don't register again. But I also think that some people, some influential people, including politicians, may be mobilizing people to come and register more than once, simply because they believe that the more registered voters they have in their polling unit or in their areas, the more advantage they have. But at the end of it, it is actual human beings who own that identity that can vote. But you know what the politicians do? They will look at the figure of registered voters in their place and use it as a bargaining tool politically. Okay? We don't have an influence about that. But the important thing is that even if you have 200 registered voters in a polling unit, it is only the people who physically come and we verify that they are the owners of that identity that will vote in an election. So you may end up with only 25 persons being accredited to vote in that election.
Okay. Okay, earlier on you had mentioned that you, from next week, I think, you will take your campaigns to...
we'll take the registration to the wards.
Okay, the registration to the wards.
Yes.
Okay. At the moment, are you sure of where you're going next week? So the people
yes, we are going to publish that later today. We'll also send the details to you to help us publish. And so in every local government area, we have electoral officers there and other staff. They will publicize with the stakeholders there. They will tell them. So for instance, let's take say Uyo local government. Okay, let's not take Uyo. Let's say Ibno local government area. They will tell them that next week, between Monday and maybe Friday, we will be in maybe Ward 2 and Ward 7. And in Ward 2, the people there in that ward know where we usually use for that, which is usually the collation center for that ward. And it will be indicated in that schedule when it is shared. So people will know where to go to get registered. And then the subsequent week...
It's not necessarily for people of that ward, but everybody from that area.
Anybody can go to any registration center, but tell them where you want to vote. You would be registered in there. Yeah.
All right. As we conclude our conversation this morning, what's your parting shot for Akwa Ibom people?
It's to assure them that every vote will count. We want people to come up and register if they've not registered at all. We also don't want people to do multiple registration, because like it happened prior to 2023, close to the election, they showed across the country the number of invalid registrations. So some states had a higher percentage of invalid registrations. I wouldn't want that to happen, and then people make fun of Akwa Ibom State, for instance, that look at the percentage of people who attempted to do multiple registration. So if you have registered before, please don't try to register again. Just tell us what you want us to help you do and we'll do it.
Okay, and then they shouldn't be afraid of being asked to pay for anything.
If anybody asks you to pay for anything, please pass the message to us. For those who are on social media, you can follow INEC Akwa Ibom. We're on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on X, and we are on Thread. They can follow INEC Akwa Ibom, so they can actually send messages to us there.
Okay. All right. In order for you to be able to exercise your franchise, you have to go through the process of ensuring that you have a voter card. That's the primary thing. You have to have that card before you can vote. So the time is nigh, so that when we get to 2027, maybe few months to the election, we don't have jam-packed. I think that's usually the case. We don't have people jam-packed at INEC offices, hustling, trying to get their cards, trying to do what we ought to have done many months back, like now, you know. So take advantage of this time, do all you need to do, get your voter card on time so you can vote in 2027. Thank you so much, Resident Electoral Commissioner for INEC, Mr. Obo Effanga. Thanks for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity also.
All right. Okay, that's it for this session of the program. We have more for you on Center Point AM for 5 Tuesday.